Okay, so I wanted to talk about the advantage. I'm really happy to be here. I'm really happy to be invited. I'm really shocked to be a keynote speaker. I am not worthy of that. But I really wanted to talk about the advantages of being where we are now. Everyone here is from the Central and Eastern Europe, right? You're from, not from the West. And if you are, you're going to learn stuff about how this world works. Anyways, who am I to say things here? I mean, I'm Sos Sosowski. I made a game called McPixel that you might have heard of. But the thing is, I live in a town. You can see my face over there. This is the place that I live in. It's like western part of Poland. It's kind of closer to Germany. It's more of a Central Europe part of Poland than Eastern Europe. Anyways, it's like the place that I currently reside in is really strategically placed. And we will come back to this later. And now I came to check to tell you all about this. So, the thing is, it is cool and easy to make games in Eastern Europe, in like the post-communist bloc, the place that we are in now. And I want to talk about why is it that, how did it come to this, and how is it different than anywhere else in the world. So, you probably know how the Eastern Europe, the stuff that used to be on the other side of Iron Curtain, is different from the West. But do you know how different it is from the rest of the world? So, only 2 weeks ago, I was in South Africa, and I met some people there, game developers. So they are pretty much now starting up to have a game industry that they do not have now. They have a university that has 2 gaming courses, game design and game engineering, and they're teaching kids, young people, how to make video games. But the thing is, there's no industry. They go out of the university and no one will hire them, so they're being trained as indies. This is why we come there every year for Amaze Johannesburg Festival, and we talk to them, we network with them, and we see how they work, and they see how we work. So what I learned there is that there is no safety net. So what do I mean by safety net? Like, imagine here, like what I did when I started making indie games. I packed my stuff and I moved back to my mom. And I was living there, trying to minimize expenses and try to make video games without any kind of anything. So in South Africa, even if I didn't succeed, I had a place to stay and I had like scraps of food in my fridge and electricity and water. So in South Africa, if you don't succeed, if you do take risk and end up without anything, you basically starve. There's no safety net. You just end up on the street. Like even here, if you end up on the street, you can take a violin or a guitar or even some trash and play the trash like drums and get some money or sing for people. There, you end up on the street. And no one's going to give you money because no one has money. And this is really terrible. So the thing is, we might be kind of worse off than the West, but we are way better off than the largest continent in the world. So it is really different here, and this is a cool thing. So we do have safety nets. And now that we are in the European Union, we have like all kinds of safety nets over our heads and all around us, and we wear safety nets on us. So yeah, we are safer than we think. And really, if you make video games and you take risk, if you imagine that you are old and you have kids and you take a risk and you end up without money, that's a problem, right? So if you want to go indie, if you want to take a risk and become a developer now and maybe succeed or maybe not, this is the right time. Now that you are young and now that you don't have as much responsibilities as you have. Like I said, in Africa, they don't have that choice. We do have that option, and we should use that. Oh, and this is kind of like the icon of what I'm talking about. So in Johannesburg, they were building the biggest office tower that was like the symbol of the country's wealth and the town's bureaucracy and thing. And they never had money to finish it. And now it is one of the biggest squats in the world. With it's looming over the entire town, and it's really surreal. So yeah, this is the kind of life that they are having there. Anyways, let's go back to Eastern Europe. So we might not be that terribly not good off, but we are really, really backwards as well in some cases. And I will tell you now why and how this actually positively affects our video game skills and video game development skills. So this is our national hero. Yeah, the Lech Wałęsa, the guy that like toppled the communism, that started the whole thing, and his girlfriends. So anyways, the thing is, the communists fell in like early 90s, but before that we had Iron Curtain, and everything that was on our side of Iron Curtain wasn't on the other side and the other way around. So we have all the crazy cars that used to go back then, and like the tracks, railroads are bad, and everything is different than like in the West, and we think that they are better there because, well, they were definitely more technologically advanced than me. So when the communists fall and the Berlin Wall was destroyed and the borders were open, what happened is import. People went, like I show you where I live, like really close to the German border. So what people did, they'd hop in the car, go to Germany and bring everything that was super cheap and like old electronics, old stuff that the Germans threw away on the trash. People took them on the cars, bring them back to Poland, fix and sell them through like old washing machines and also old computers. So we got flooded with obsolete hardware in the 90s. Like, there were places like this. I remember places like this and going there and trying to, like, as a kid, pick parts that made sense and try to put together computers out of them that were like really, really old. I didn't realize it back then that this is really backwards, and that like 486 computers were already present in the early 90s, and I only had like super 20 years old PC in my home. So I got my first PC. I'm 27 years old. I was born in 1987, and so what I should have is like I should remember Super Nintendo. I should remember Super Nintendo 64 and Game Boys and maybe Amiga. But this is the computers that I have. This one is not a computer. It's like pretty much the first gaming thing that I got. It's Atari 2600 clone. That Atari 2600 was released in 1977 and discontinued somewhere around 80s. And then, like, suddenly, we have it in the 90s. It's back. Commodore 64 started in 1981. And it was present in our Eastern Europe in the early 90s and up to late 90s. And I have this computer. This is like Schneider, kind of one of the first PCs that, like, came out after IBM. And it couldn't play any video games or do anything. It only had DOS and could read floppies and didn't have a hard drive. So this was also like a 10-year-old computer already. But people didn't have anything. Like when I had this computer and I wanted to play video games, so my father would go to the police station, and this is recording, right? I shouldn't. Anyways, my father used to go to the police station with like the floppies and get some video games from them because like no one had a computer. The only computer in town was like on the police station, and they had some like the Incredible Machine and the F-19 stealth fighter. So what happened is the computers came here, but there was still no software, so you couldn't buy original software for the computers because like it was not present, it was not produced, and it was not advertised. So first thing that happens is like the kind of piracy and the early demo scene that probably Maria was talking about, that people put together tapes of like many games and kind of sold them like that, and then like kind of custom hardware, cartridges for Commodore 64 and custom floppies for Atari and stuff like that consolidated the games. Like I had a Commodore 64 for many years and never had an original game. Also we had the Famiclones. Do you remember Famiclones? Like the ones that was supposed to be Nintendo but they never were Nintendo. And we had those as well, and without any legitimate games, only pirate stuff. And also what happened that people had to have skills to get this working, right? You had the games that you had to pirate, so you need to know how to crack. You had to make your own games if you wanted to play something. And I had a Commodore until so late that no one else had a Commodore. And I was making video games for Commodore 64. At the time, it was like 1999. I was like 14 years old, and I had a really nice book about how to make video games for Commodore 64. And I I knew that no one would ever play them because people already started adopting PCs, and I only had a Commodore 64 because we had to sell our PC because we didn't have money. So I was making these games, recording them on tapes, and I knew that no one will ever play them. So what I did is I made games that I wanted to play myself. But then I learned a lot about making the games for old hardware. So what am I getting at is that people got adopted, like now, young people that don't remember the times, or people in my age that are from the West don't remember that times, and they missed a lot because when you get to work with such old hardware, you get to learn how computers work inside out, and it is really helpful in making video games. And where PC computers started becoming like home appliances, in Poland it was about like 1999, 2000, about the time of Pentium 2, that like the middle class, like the better people. I was living in a village, so the only people that had computers were like the rich farmers. Started having computers, and like, wow, computers, they're so cool, and I didn't know that they have new ones and they're so powerful. And then like when the time that pretty much everyone started having computers at home, it was the time that Celeron, the like super shitty processor, came out, and everyone could suddenly afford a computer because they made it cheaper for everyone. And also what happened was the rise of bedroom coders, or what you can call early indies. So in the late 90s, where like we started importing stuff and like we started catching up with them, there was a time that Pentium appeared. Like Pentium appeared in 1992, but it only appeared in around here in like 1997 and stuff. So the thing is, before Pentium, the old processors like 286 and 386 and 486, who remembers those? Great. So those were pretty much impossible for an amateur coder to make anything that works fluently on this processor, because you had to pretty much do everything in assembly for it to work and not use floating point and stuff like that. And then Pentium was really forgiving. So your code could be total shit and it will work on the Pentium. So that was cool about Pentium. And this is pretty much how the early indie games that appeared on the internet happened, because Pentium was a really forgiving machine. So let's compare. Let's compare a kind of average Westerner to average Easterner. So this guy, they are both my age, so they are both 27. This guy, when he was young, he was playing Nintendo 64 and PlayStation, and he remembers Super Nintendo vaguely, and he played a lot of games on maybe Pentium 2, and he never saw an Amiga. And this guy had a Commodore 64, a Famicom clone, and Atari 2600 clone. So they're the same age, they should have the same memories, but they don't. And this does not only affect the skills, but it also affects how you design video games, because we remember a different set of them from your childhood. And as we know, like the set of everything you remember kind of creates what you create now. But this is not exactly, this is kind of an introductions that I wanted to do. And what I wanted to talk about is obviously why we make video games. No, we don't. Anyways, we need money, right? Even if you want to make freeware games, even if you want to make open source games, you need money to eat. We might have all the safety nets, but you still, Gesundheit, but you still have to have money. So I want to talk about how is it advantageous for where we are here to make video games from financial perspective, as in how to get funding and how to not screw it up, and how is it really easy around here. So the thing is, how you can get money around here for making video games. You can like get a mortgage loan on your house, or get a loan and try to pay it back maybe later, or maybe sell your kidney or something. So it's not the best idea ever. So what you can do is get a government funding. So we are Eastern Europe, so this is the best part of about being in Eastern Europe. The West pumps money into us. Like, we take them, and this is why they hate us, because we take their money. Because there is a really, really fundamental rule of European Union about integrity, and I don't know I think it's called the European Integrity Fund. And the rule is the West gives money to the East, as long as there's like a downward slope. So the east is poorer and the west is bigger, and when we switch places, we do the other way around. And this continues. Like, there was a Monty Python sketch about that, I think, where there was a black knight that stole silver from the rich people to the poor people, and then he had to steal from the poor people that are suddenly rich and go back to the rich people. So this is what is happening. But now we are getting all the money, so we can get easily the government funding or European funding. But the thing is, you get drowned in papers, and you have to account for everything. Even if you buy a lollipop or a pen, you have to write it off, and you have to have papers for everything, or they will take all of your money back. So it is money, but it is really clumsy. And also, you have to have European Union logos everywhere, and probably European Union anthem playing inside your game if you get money from them. Because they're like super propaganda, kind of like communist times. It's pretty much the same. So you can get money from the Kickstarter. Look at this Kickstarter. Thomas the Tank Engine themed RPG. How is that not cool? So the thing is, like, you should never get money for your first game on the Kickstarter, because if it fails, you're like, who will give you money after that? And it's really hard to make a successful game without any experience, yes, this. And also, you are bound. So you might, of course, I don't say that everyone will fail and that your first game has to fail. But the thing is, when you get the money from Kickstarter from 1 million of people, you are stuck with that. So if you do that and that succeeds, you have to make a Thomas the Tank Engine themed RPG no matter what. And like, if you take a loan, you can or I don't know, or a sponsor, you can tell him there's like one person that you have to like, hey, it didn't work out, and there you have like 20,000 people. And how do you tell them that it didn't work out? There's like an angry mob coming at you. Early access. So early access is a really cool thing. Like, I like what is happening about like kind of performative making of video games, like what you can see Vlambeer's making and what you can see with all the open world games, all the sandbox games, all the really cool games that are happening, and users are being interact in the process of making video games. But what it is not cool for is getting money. Because you are getting money for an unfinished product. When you want to use early access, you should use early access because you want to get people to play your game early, not because you want to get money, because that will not work. So you can go to publishers. But what do you want from publishers? Money. But what do publishers want for you? They want money. This is the only thing you want. So you can go to publisher and he will give you money for making a video game, but you're pretty much selling your soul. So you might think, okay, I will get money from the publisher forever anyway. So he will do promotions for me, and he's really cool, and there are really many cool publishers like Devolver Digital. But then, for example, you die, and then the rights of the video game doesn't get transferred to your offspring, but to the publisher, because it's owned by the publisher, and you only get a cut. So this is really kind of problematic thing that most people don't see, and I think that going to publishers is not necessary, especially when you're in Eastern Europe and you have many different ways to get money. So I would like to, the thing that I always want to do is to base what I say on my experience, because this is what I think people invite me to places, because they want to see, because I kind of did something that works and they want to see why. So I want to show you what I did and how it worked. So this is the presentation that I did only 3 weeks ago about, it was called Don't Make Money, Make Games, and I was talking about making video games without focusing on making money. So when I come up with an idea of video game, I'm like, hey, this is a game that will sell really well. No, this is wrong. So what you have to do is say, hey, this is a game that people would like to play. And when you focus on a game that people would like to play, people will play it, and people will definitely buy it, and you will get money. But if you focus on a game that people will only buy, and you mostly focus about like shovel features and that will make people buy your game, this will not work. And this is a better approach, and you will make a better game, and you'll probably make better money, not trying to make better money. So this is what I was talking about. But what I want to talk about now is I want to kind of tell you my story of how I came to be here, pretty much. So I was a teacher. This is why I can speak so loud, by the way. I can speak to like a gym full of children that are making noise. Anyway, so I was a teacher, but Then I realized that 40 years later, I will still be a teacher for the same money. Also, I had to move back to my mom because teachers earned so little money that I couldn't afford to live by myself. And then I was working with my old primary school teacher that was teaching there for 40 years. And she was still doing the same thing for the same money. And I was like, I don't want to be this guy, this lady. I want to move forward. So what I did, because I was teaching tiny kids, and it took I was doing 18 hours a week. That was like the full-time job, 18 hours a week, and each hour was 45 minutes. So I had a shitload of time to make games in the afternoon, and this is what I did. And I started at one point sending out CVs to different jobs, and I got a job as a programmer by ambitious 3D social MMO startup. Do I have to say more? You can also read you need to read this. So obviously, pretty much a year later, I started looking for a job. So I had experience now. The game didn't go so well, but what happened, it gave me already much experience. So if you want to go indie, but you have an opportunity to work in an industry as anyone, in any position, go there and learn, steal the industry secrets. No, actually don't steal the secrets because that's not cool. But what you should do is see the process and keep in mind that this is how you should do it. Even though it doesn't work out, this is the process that should be used. And this is kind of a lot of approaches that have to be done. And the idea that kind of is terrible for programmers. You're a programmer and then your boss comes in and is tries to click the icon of the game on the desktop, and he doesn't know how to play video games, but he's your boss. And he's like, this doesn't work. And you double click it. And he's like, can you make it so it launches when you click once? And you're like, no, I can't. No, this is not what you should do. You should make the game launch when you click once. No, seriously, this is what you learn when you work in that place. So I started looking for a job, and I had experience. I was going around. I was making round trips, going to places, trying to get a job, and I ended up. Actually, there's a cool story about there's people can fly and in Warsaw, and they were having an interview about testers, and I went there. It's 400 kilometers of a train ride, and I went there. They called me. I sent them my CV. I was only enumerating what I have, that I'm BA in English and I work in this only one place. But they were like, okay, come to the interview. You're pretty much in. Just let's have this final step. And I went there, and I actually didn't go to People Can Fly, but to a middle guy. And the middle guy was giving me a survey and asking me questions do you speak English? I was like, yeah, I speak English. It says so on my thingy. Oh, right. So she asked me 2 more questions, and it took 20 seconds. And she told me, okay, thank you, we will call you back. Do I get the job? Yeah, you probably do. But it's paid shit. It was she told me how much is it paid, and it's paid the teacher job. And I was like, what? How am I supposed to live here? I was like, so this is it. For 20 seconds, I came 400 kilometers. She was like, where are you from? I was like, did you even read my resume? And yeah, and I realized that looking for a job is kind of tedious, but I got into the last part of recruitment process for fictional games, and I nearly worked on their new game. Well, I actually did, because the last part was a paid task. So I got 1,000 euros for fixing their engine, and I didn't get the job, someone else did, but I got the money. So the thing is, this is a thing. When you get money here from the West, the money is worth way more. So when I got 1,000 euros and I would live in France or in Germany, I would probably live there for maybe half a month or a month at most. But in Poland, for 1,200 euros, I could live for 2 months, because this is and easily, because this is how much money is worth in our place. So this was cool, and I would realize, hey, I have this money. And this is time. I can try and make my own game, and maybe that will work. So what I did, I started to make my first indie game. It was called Tripping Balls in Ponyland. And it was kind of an iteration of a previous game that I did. It was called Attack of the Heavenly Bats. about the guy that collects weapons, but there's only one button to fire all of them at once. And this was the next game about this guy in Ponyland, and he kills ponies, and they have strawberry guts, and they splatter all over the place, and he has to lick them off the walls to get power-ups. So I was like, yeah, this is such a great idea. But anyways, I was working on it, and in the middle of this, Ludenberg 21 happened, and what I did is I came up with McPixel. You can see it there. And I made it in 48 hours. I was like, hey, people like this game. Maybe this is the next game I should make if I can get money. And food started running out in my fridge. So I had to really focus on this. And I revoked my idea from tripping balls in Polyland into something called Telemite, about the mutant ninja. That was pretty much a demake of the game called Prototype. Do you know Prototype? Yeah, the game about, so you're a mutant ninja and you fight mutants and military and wreak havoc all across the city. And I was looking for a sponsor and I really was running out of food, and then suddenly the guy from Newgrounds, Tom Fulp, came and like, hey. So I was like, because when you make Flash games, this is a really cool way to get funding. You can go, there's a website called Flash Game License, it's fgl.com. So you go there, it's kind of like an eBay for Flash games. You can put Flash games there, and the sponsors appear. I want to give them money for it. And they bid, and they auctions your game off. So it's very quick money, because then you get the game. Sponsorship is not about selling the game, it's only about branding the game. So you get to brand the game with, like, I know, Armor Games, Congregate, Newgrounds, or King.com. King.com is actually a really good Flash sponsor. And so you get to put that on your game. And from that, you get like a chunk of money once, and maybe some ad money. So that's really quick money for me. And from Telemite, I got $8,000. And I was like, wow, this is like a year of living here. And then we come back again. Like, if I lived in London, that would be like 2 months of living in London. But I live in Poland, and I could really live nearly for a year. But actually, having a company pretty much gives you a lot of expenses. So I ran out of money, and I had to think of something. So there was a global game jam, and I was like, hey, I know. I can use all the thing about splashing guts all over the place, and maybe make a game out of that. And I made Super Pig, and Super Pig is a game about a pig in a really dark environment, but when you die, you splat blood, and you can see a part of the level. But you have limited lives, and you have to go to the end. So I made that game, and it was really hard, and I don't think many people managed to beat it, but it still gave me some money. I got some more funding. I found a sponsor for that, and I got like, I think, 5K for it. And I was like, wow, this is so cool. I get money still. But then what happened is McPixel started growing, and this is what you do if you use middleware. I don't say you shouldn't use middleware, but it kind of weird stuff appears. So this is one of the weirdest stuff that happens. You know McPixel, right? Do you know how McPixel looks? It looks like a game from Atari and like from 30 years ago. So the two top things, like 2.7 and 1.1 gigabytes, that is 4 gigabytes in total, is the compiler compiling McPixel. And I only had 3 gigabytes of RAM, so I had to get a new computer. So I suddenly spent the money for a computer, and I didn't have food. So what we did is we got together, a few of us, on an IRC channel, and it was like, hey, we should do indie buskers. Because like we started moaning about how we don't have money. So this is Sofia Olden and Pekka Kujensu and Rat King that the games Try have just released yesterday on Steam. And this is Sofia Olden, and this is Ido Yeheli, who made Cardinal Quest. So we're like, hey, let's do a game jam, and people can give us money while we jam. And when we finish, they will get the games. And we're like, hey, this is a good idea. And we got a whole bunch of money from that. And people actually got excited for it, and we made really terrible games. So yeah, I did that. And then there was Amaze Indie Connect in Berlin. So I went there and lost all the money that I got. And I was really hungry. So what I did is I took the Indie Buskers game and made it like try to finish it and polish it. And I was selling it for, it was like when you go to the website, you click on a dice and you roll a dice, and you can play for $1 to $6. And you can also refresh and roll again. So people were paying $1 for it. But it wasn't much, right? And the game was really terrible because I made it in 2 weeks. But every $1 was like 3 Polish zlotys, which is really like a bread and maybe some sausage for it. And I was like, hey, this is like I'm getting money and I can eat and I can have, but then no, because people stopped buying it because it was shit. So what I did is I opened McPixel pre-orders and was giving the SuperOffice Stress for free with it. And then I managed to roll the release. So what happened after that is I got food, finally. And also, I bought a car. So the story about the car is really funny, because McPixel was selling for $99. And it's like ×3 in Polish zlotys. Like Polish zlotys is, I think, is about like 12 korons, is it? I don't know, whatever. So anyways, the car was like 900 zlotys. So actually, I bought it for 30 McPixels. So, and like on the first day, 100 McPixels were sold. So I pretty much bought a car for like 30 of them. So this is a cool thing to be an indie developer in Eastern Europe. You, maybe even if it's not easier to get money from anywhere, but actually is easier, you don't need as much. And like now that I live here, I really wanted to move, but now that I live here, I realize the advantages of being here and being an Eastern European indie developer, and how every McPixel that now sells for $5 is actually 15 Polish zlotys for that, and I could easily sustain one day for one McPixel. And yeah, let's go back to my place. So I show you where I live. It's this place. So how this place is the most strategically placed place in the universe to make video games. So let's do that. I was living in a village, but like I managed to move away from my mom's like just 2 months ago. But I didn't get to live there for long because I started traveling all over the place, and I actually just come back there every now and then to do some washing. So now I live in a town called Nowy Tomyśl, which is like a bit west from Poznań and like really close to Berlin, and it's on a highway. So it's 2 kilometers away from a highway that goes all the way from Warsaw to Berlin and to Hanover and to all over Europe. So I just hop in my car and I can go anywhere. And also, if I don't want to go in a car, I can take a train pretty much anywhere. Because there's a train that goes, like super speedy train that goes from Moscow to London and all over Europe near my place. And also, if I need to go to a big town and get something, I can go to Poznań, which is really close by. It's like kind of the size of Brno. And I can go to Berlin. This is really close by, and you know how big Berlin is, and I can pretty much get everything I need there if I need anything. And like if I don't want to go anywhere and I just want to chill out, there's like a national park going on really close, and a lot of wildlife to see. We have like recently there's a wolf pack that moved in, and you can see it if you go to a forest and you're not afraid. And there's a swamp, and there's like a river that you can go kayaking to. And those are really nice places to go to, especially that I live in a really tiny town. So like I go 200 meters and suddenly I'm in a forest and I can pick mushrooms and see all the wildlife. So it's really cool and really chilly. But also, oh, by the way, so you would think that the tiny rural town doesn't have internet, but like the railroad, under the railroad, there's like a really huge optic fiber going on that happens to go right by my town. So I get like a 1/4 gigabit optic, like I have optic fiber in the wall that I connect my computer to, and I have like 1/4 gigabit. I was downloading like Final Fantasy 13, that is 60 gigabytes. It took like half an hour to download. And like, wow, so yeah, so this is the end. Being an Eastern European indie is really cool, and if you're an Eastern European game developer, you should consider going indie because it's a really nice thing to do. And now probably, yeah, we made it in time. It's 14:37. Thank you very much for listening.